Are you tired of the marketing guessing game? Does your website feel more like a digital billboard than a client magnet? If you're nodding along, you're not alone. And it's time to stop the uncertainty and start getting real results. Let's talk about your marketing spend. Are you just shelling out money every month and crossing your fingers? Do you ever wonder what impact your marketing is really having on your revenue? Well, it's time to take the guesswork out of the equation with Rise Up Media. We've been working with them for over a year, and the feedback from our fellow members has been fantastic. Rise Up Media is here to take your marketing to the next level. They'll even perform a full audit of your online presence, giving you the good, the bad, and even let you in on what your competition is up to that you're missing out on. And the best part, there's no obligation, no catch, no pressure. If you decide to work with them, their contracts are month to month. That's right. No long-term commitments tying you down. So what are you waiting for? To learn more about how Rise Up Media can transform your firms, visit riseupmedia.com/maxlaw, and Rise is spelled with a Z. riseupmedia.com/maxlaw.
This is Maximum Lawyer with your host, Tyson Mutrux.
Welcome back to another episode of Maximum Lawyer. I've got two amazing guests. They're both members of the association. We got Marne and Travis, and so we're going to give you a sort of a window into a mastermind that we had. It was out in Arizona, and we had just a really magical moment. We're going to kind of take you there in the circle. We were sitting outside. The weather was beautiful. Marne was talking, and then Travis, sort of a light bulb moment went off. And then we're going to introduce this framework that Travis has built. He's built it through Notion. And I was kind of making some notes. We were talking beforehand. And it's a way of really connecting the self to the customer with a strategy embedded. That's the way that Travis puts it. And so I'll let him introduce that a little bit. But Marne, will you take us to that conversation? What was going on? What was going through your mind at that time? And then we'll toss it to Travis to talk about that light bulb moment.
Yeah, I had intended on just talking about marketing and lead gen, but I feel like by the time it was my turn, everyone else, like several other people had already brought that up. So I just didn't want to rehash, like beat a dead horse. And so I figured everyone else in this room has already been where I have and have gotten to where I want to go. And so I just figured like kind of sharing where I started and where I was and some of my goals that related to my family and kids, and just went kind of skyrocketed from there.
Yeah, and then so Travis, what did you hear and what did you see and why did the light bulb go off? Because it was a really magical moment in my opinion. It was just a really cool moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think prior to the moment, Marne, the businesswoman and attorney and professional, was sharing from a place of what she has accomplished and what she hoped to accomplish, but it was coming through a lens of professionalism, of this is a role that I play and this is a thing that I do at my business. And then she started talking about her kids, and the little girl Marne showed up, the grown woman, powerful superwoman showed up, the protector showed up, and I just got goosebumps on my arms talking about it because I remember it. Like, I saw her, and I was like, oh shit, here we go. Sorry, don't mean to cuss, but like that's where I was like, yes, this is what I want to hire. This is who I want to refer to. This is what I want more of in my life. And I was like, this, you can't, please don't lose this, right? For all of us, please don't lose this.
Yeah, so Marne, you were, it's interesting, I guess, at a certain point, it almost felt like you were getting a little bit uncomfortable, and you had to kind of step outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Like, can you talk a little bit about that part of it?
Well, I think some of it is it's hard to be that vulnerable, but also trying to find the balance between like being professional and being personal. There's a hindrance, but then a lot of my story also, it's my kid's story too, and so finding the balance of like what can I share that doesn't encroach on their privacy.
Yeah, and I think
in a small setting it's really easy, but
yeah. Well, I think a lot of attorneys struggle with that. Where they talk about, oh, I don't want to be on video because I don't want to do this and I want to do that. And they're afraid to really kind of expose themselves to the world. And I think that's where Travis, I think he identified that in you and no, get your story out there. This is wonderful. And I think that's Travis where you're like, hey, I've got this thing that I created. Let's use this to our advantage. So will you talk about what this thing is that we're talking about, this framework, so that then we're gonna kind of walk through that, right? We're gonna walk through that with Marnie. Is that how it's gonna work?
Yeah. We'll go through. She's put in some work to it, and then we'll ask her to clarify some things, and then hopefully we can end up by explaining how to bring this into fruition in the real world.
Great.
So where would you like me to start? How do you want to just explain the general?
Yeah, so explain the general framework of it, because I know we were talking before, and I had to stop you because we got to get the record button on because it's such great content. So give the general framework of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, totally. So in my world, you've got the 4 buckets: self, customer, machine, and team. Build your business in that order. And I think what we're discussing today are the 2 front end buckets: self and customer. And this is relationship, and it's something that you want to be in, and it's not something that you can have or possess. And I encourage anyone listening to really think about that for a moment. I can be in relationship with someone, and that takes 2 people, and it is give and receive, and it is a constant loop, just like electricity and the universe. And in that framework, self is about what you have to give and whether you are the gift or whether you are the gift giver. And that helps you frame the role that you're playing in relationship with somebody else. And you might have to do both, but it's really important that you understand where you traditionally sit. Now, inside of that and figuring out who you are, it can be touchy-feely, but you need to have a strategy if you're going to make it a business. And that is where I was sharing that I'm a big fan of Alex M.H. Smith. He's over in the UK. He does strategy work for big businesses. He gave out a free workbook on how to come to a core strategy statement. I took that workbook, changed it a little bit for how I would use some of the language, and tackled that with some of the messaging pieces from marketing companies that I've used and built over the years on how do you actually bring that strategy out to life with your personal story of self. The core strategy could be the business is going to do this. It doesn't have to have any soul in it, but the closer you get it to who you are, the more powerful and unique that it is. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to build a business that nobody else can compete with. And I think that's what I heard that day in Arizona from Marne is this is 100% one person. This is a life and a soul and an experience. And so that's the model. How do we simplify? How do we get a sentence and a statement and a sentiment that we can give to a marketing team or my staff or communicate directly with potential clients?
So, Marnie, you've gone through this. I guess what's the experience been like going through it?
It just really self-reflective, and trying to find, I don't know, you just really have to think about it, more personal stuff than you anticipate when you're answering kind of going through the framework and answering the questions, but then also the business side too. And some of the questions were hard, actually. They took me a while to kind of think about. And the other ones, you kind of more expected, your goals or your values, and you've already kind of got them in your head, even if you haven't, written them down anywhere else. But yeah, just a lot of reflection and thinking and, about the process, about the business, about marketing, about your message, a million things. It's like every single business book that you've read, but combined into one.
So what I find interesting is that most law firm owners have never thought about some of this stuff. And I wonder, had some of the questions that you went through, had you ever considered it before in your entire life? Or are these the first time you've ever really thought about any of these things?
I think there was a little bit of both. Like, there were some that I hadn't thought of. There was one on the company manifesto that I was like, oh, and I'm still kind of like stewing on that. Like, I put something in there just to have something for today, but I also was like, I don't like what's in there. Like, I want it to be better, like,
Love it.
and more like
That's
soulful than what I've got.
that's a sign that you're doing it right? When you read your own words and you're like, this is directional, but like, I don't want to sing this from the mountaintops. Like, when you say your manifesto, if you're the founder of a business and you read your manifesto and you don't get goosebumps, if your voice doesn't go up a few octaves, like, if you aren't ready to charge on the field at the end of it, you haven't written anything worth writing.
Yeah. Like, I almost deleted it this morning. I was like, I don't know.
That's
I'm
okay.
glad
We'll
you
get
did.
there.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, me too.
So, Trev,
And
actually, let me ask you this before we get into the start going through the questions, everything. If someone says like, "Hey, I thought about deleting this, or I wanted to delete this, or I did delete this," like, what is your advice? Should people keep that stuff in there as like a sort of like a working copy, or like, what is your whole thought process on deleting and adding and all that?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of strike through, right? Like, I like strike through. This was where I was, and then this is where I am, and there's no judgment on if where I am is, good enough for where I want to go. You're reminding yourself where you were. That's what I like about the strike through. Now, when you get to the end and you feel good, make a whole copy of the thing and then get rid of the fluff and the extras and just get down to the core bones that, are your now. But yeah, no, I like it. It's a reminder of advancement, of going. It's a big reason why I leave the old, like when I go to the gym, I leave those marks on the calendar like I did that, right? It's just a small reminder.
Love it. All right. So, walk us through it. Let's begin. How does this framework begin? I am very curious. Like, what's the first question? That is like because I want to know how it starts.
The very first question is super, super simple. And again, this is what I love about Alex, and that is, what is the business, right? And so you think you know it, but he asks a prompt that I left in here that I think is really important. I don't know if you actually read it or not, Marne, but the prompt is, how would you explain your company to somebody who doesn't care? Like, just think about that juxtaposition. Our brains get so Grand Canyoned, right? That water has, like, that's how we work. And all it takes is a little ruffle of a feather and the whole picture changes. Like, wait a minute. Not to somebody I'm trying to get to pay me, not to somebody somebody who doesn't care. How would I explain my business? So Marne in this instance is, it's a solo practitioner law firm. That's the simple. Like, nobody cares what you do, Marne. What would you tell them, right? I'm a solo practitioner lawyer. Great. Like, that's as simple as it gets. What category is the next question is it playing in? Wills, trusts, and estate planning, right? That's a good category. Now you're separating what you're doing. I'm a solo practitioner lawyer from where I'm doing it, right? I'm a football player. Are you playing on AstroTurf? Are you playing indoors? Are you playing on snow in the grass? Like, the field is different than the sport. And I think those two things usually get lumped together in one. And so right off the beginning, I was like, Alex is a brilliant person. This is useful. It challenges the way that you think about the base level of what you're doing. Then the next piece, and I think this is where you really get into, if you are brand new doing something, it's going to be very hard for you to answer the next question, which is, as a first-time founder, this puts you back into research mode and makes you much more likely to be successful in your first venture. For Marne, who's an expert, she was able to go through this next question and express it, but it shows you your understanding of that field, and that is, what's the current situation that needs to be overcome by the strategy you're about to develop, right? So you've got who you are as a business, and you've got what category are you in. So what is that current situation? And I think this was an interesting one. What did you say,
I put
Marne?
a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the good and the bad.
Totally, right? And so what are you seeing that you want to be different, right? And if the answer comes up nothing, understand that what you're doing is just copying. And if that's what you're doing, there's only one place you can compete: price. That's it. Like, that's what you're left to, and that's your strategy. I will produce marginally similar results to whoever is competing with me, but I shall promise to be cheaper. I mean, does anyone want to sign up for that job? sounds terrible. But that's like, it's so core simple. That's where we're at. So for Marne, most people know they need to do something, but they think estate planning is for someone else beside them. Somebody with more money. I'm not rich enough yet. They put it off because they're confused, overwhelming, or not urgent, right? They don't know where to think about it. They don't want to think about death. So that first piece, what needs to be overcome? Fear and indifference, right? Like, that's what I read in there. Like, people are indifferent and people are afraid. Well, those are human nature. I mean, that's all day, every day. That's my high school student upstairs, not preparing for the exam because it's going to be tough. Like, we've been doing that since we were kids. When people do something, they often use generic online forms. So if they do overcome their fear or indifference, they're not sure how to. They might be embarrassed, or they might not want to share with another human. It's private. And this is where I think, Marne, you see, I'm already making links in my head between you sharing your story and what they're feeling at the very beginning of their journey. But this is my private information. How do I share this with somebody? Right? Like, imagine them finding you through marketing with you sharing something private about yourself. Like, this is like, I'm calling you right away. There's no one that can even compete with that. So as a result, a lot of plans aren't done well. Law firms have a tendency to focus on documents. They don't guide them. So what did we get in there? What's the current situation? People are having human fears at the beginning that are keeping them from taking action, or when they take action, not getting a comprehensive answer that's actually going to take care of them when they need it. That's the problem in the category. And that's what Marnie's setting out to resolve. Just in those quick areas, it reframes what you're doing, right? You are not, the transaction is the documents they get. But that's not what Marnie's needed to do. You've got that in there. Heck, AI in some avenues might be able to provide that in the future. That's the transaction. Now, inside of your gift bundle, what you're promising to give to a client, you're going to take yourself and you're going to wrap that transaction in yourself. And that is something that nobody on earth can provide. Nobody can compete with that. Not everybody might want that, Marnie. There's difference, right? Not everybody might want that. But the people that are potentially interested in that can't find that anywhere else on earth. You're the only one that can give yourself, right? You're the only one that can give your gift. So that's how that works.
So real quick, Travis, before you keep going, a couple things. It's interesting to me because it sounds like what you're looking for is like, okay, here's how you're differentiating your firm from other firms. That's one part of this too. What I also find kind of interesting is that you're reverse engineering who your ideal client might be, as opposed to, like, usually what people say is like, start with like, who's your ideal client? I think if you did that in this situation, you wouldn't get the right answer, because what you can extract from what Marnie put in there is she can figure who her ideal client is from that, as opposed to saying my ideal client is X and then trying to retrofit it for that. It's almost in reverse order of what most people talk about, which I think I find that kind of interesting.
Yeah, I did a speech for YPO. They were doing a cohort of people, and I had a friend that sits on that governing body, and she got me in there, and it was on go to market. And these are like brilliant YPO people with these like ridiculously smart business plans, way better than anything I've ever built in my life. And I was a little intimidated at first to go into that environment, and I just thought, I'm like, I have to give what I have and what makes me unique, and that is looking at things from the other side and then, trying to extrapolate. And here's what is so interesting, Tyson, is that we are taught to look for TAM, right? Total addressable market. We are taught to look for how big we could potentially make it. All of the potential clients, this core client that you're talking about, this avatar. And yes, at some point, if your business makes it all the way to the height of what it might be, you'll be serving all of those people. You'll be serving lots of people, Marnie, that are just purchasing the transaction, right? And that's okay, because they're going to get the same value anyways. However, at the beginning of that process, and how all of those future customers find you is through referrals and word of mouth and brand equity that you have built. And those original customers, the customers that Tyson is talking about, reverse engineering this ideal customer, this is a very small microcosm. And the way that I explain this is, most people talk about the blue ocean. Go to this big blue ocean, find your opportunity. This is your ideal customer. All of these people, it's untapped. You have this wonderful space. I say, what happens before the blue ocean? It's the tidal pool, the small, tiny tidal pool. And when you look inside of one of those tiny tidal pools, you see so much life that never goes anywhere else, that is uniquely tied to each other. They know this ecosystem like the back of their hand. They are uniquely defined for it. They trust and count on each other in this small tidal pool. If you make an impact in that tidal pool, everyone will know your name. Everyone. And the idea that, or the example that I give here is RX bars. They are ubiquitous at this point. They are the #1 snack bar, health snack bar in the world, at least as of like a year ago when I was researching my other talk. Their tidal pool was CrossFit. Look at who eats them now. Everyone out under the sun eats these things. My kids take them for lunch. But they stuck with CrossFit for years. They put their bars in every CrossFit gym. They knew they were good for other people but they didn't care. They made it ubiquitous in CrossFit. And at any point that somebody from the CrossFit world ventured out of that tidal pool to go get resources or to go visit somebody in the blue ocean, and they came back and food or exercise or health came up, guess what brand came out of that person's mouth, right? That's how RX bars went. They didn't go and just start throwing them on Whole Foods shelves and all that. That was long after they were the #1 brand inside of that tidal pool. And I think that's so instructive for find the core audience, the person who is going to receive the gift personally, because that's somebody that will share it with someone else. And there's two hands. One, oh, so you're doing a strategy just to get more customers. Well, yeah, I'm in business. But two, I actually gave it to somebody, and if that person shares my gift with someone else, that's actually good. And I have to remind my intake team all the time when they're like, I don't want to be so salesy on that intake call. I'm like, hold on. Are you being salesy? Or do you actually believe that if they hang up and call another law firm, they'll get better or worse outcomes or service? And they're like, well, nobody will care about them as much as we do. I said, then you're not selling them anything, you're helping. Right? Like there's two sides to it. You connect it to yourself in a way that's authentic and real, and you get to stay on the side that feels warm and cozy. And that's what I want for you. That's what I want for my clients. It's what I always have wanted for my team and for myself.
So, Marnie, we've covered a lot in a little bit of it's interesting. There's a lot in a little bit of just a few questions. But I wonder in those first few questions what are some things that you learned about yourself and your firm?
I think, like you said, it's kind of reverse engineering, because especially with my area of law, like I can't help everyone. Like, I need to help everyone. Everyone needs my help. But that's not necessarily going to be who's the right fit. And that reverse engineering has kind of clarified a little bit more, like, who the right fit's going to be for me as we've gone through this, and who I need to try and market to a little bit better, to actually reach them and communicate with them. But I think one of the biggest things for me was just like kind of the shock of like, I don't know, my own personal story. Because like to me, I'm like, it's just me. Like, I'm just me. I'm not any better or any different than anyone else. Like, and of course your friends like always encourage you, but like being in a room with people that don't know you and haven't known you for a long time still tell you like, no, you need to use this information. Like, you need to share this information and use it to reach other people and to connect with your clients. That's probably been the biggest eye opener, I think, for me.
Why was it so shocking? You used the word shocking, so I'm curious. Like, why was it so shocking to you?
I don't know, because for me, I'm just like, well, this is my life. Like, this is just me. Like, this is our kids. Like, this is just normal, like, to us. And then most of my really close friends, like, I've known for a long time, so they're just like, oh yeah, you're so cool, it's so inspiring. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, you're just like saying that because you're my friend.
Well, it's funny, a lot of people think that same way. It's interesting. So I may have told you the story, I can't remember if I did, but Jim and I were at Infusionsoft, their conference Icon years ago. It was like 2017 or something like that. And Marcus Lemonis spoke, and he said, He called the people at Icon, the staff, and said, I want you to close the doors and no one leaves. And he said, if you want to leave, you need to leave right now, because I'm going to call on a couple people, and you need to share a very personal story, a story that you had never told anyone else. And I will call on volunteers first, but if no one volunteers, I'm going to call on you, and I will expect an answer. So you had a couple people leave, but they closed the doors. And so I'll be honest with you, I was kind of sweating. I was like, what, I hope they don't call on me. But luckily I didn't get called on. But they called on a couple people. And the first person that stood up, he talked about how he was afraid that his mom never loved him. And it was like this long story. And then Marcus Lemonis had told his own personal story. And so like he called like 3 or 4 people, and like they told really personal stories. And it was interesting because he said, okay, now that you've heard all these stories, do you like these people more or do you like these people less? And everyone was clearly liked them more. Like they liked them way more. And so we worry about these stories that we're afraid to tell people because we're afraid that people will like us less. And the reality is that the more you are vulnerable, the more people will like you, and they'll become your raving fans, and they'll become your tidal pool where you go out and they're going out and they're kind of preaching your story. So I do think it's kind of interesting how we sort of minimize our stories. Was kind of almost like what you're saying, Marty, is like you minimize your own story when in reality your story is very valuable to a lot of people. So I think that I find that part very interesting, how internally we will minimize it, but externally it's actually a very powerful thing.
It is. And Tyson, this goes back to the beginning of our humanity, besides finding food, right, we have, and shelter, we've got the safety, and the safety is in tribes and connecting, right? And so when we meet another human, we immediately judge, do I need to protect myself, or does being with this person make me safer? And one of my favorite people on earth is Brene Brown, and she's just taught us so much about how being vulnerable actually is such a sign of courage and confidence. And I want you to think about when you're meeting somebody in the wild and they are not oversharing, but they are demonstrating vulnerability in the wild. You are receiving signals that this person is safe and confident, and you are naturally wanting to be in their tribe. And so I think a lot of times we were potentially raised around, whether in school or families or whatever, somebody that is a blowhard or very egoic. So we see, oh, if you're sharing, it's all about you and this feels yuck, right? So then the answer is don't share. That's wrong, but that's a reasonable response. Or somebody that is whining and complaining. And so at an early age, we got so much of, well, this is a personal story or that's personal information, but it's coming from a negative side of whining and complaining. And that does not feel safe, because that feels like somebody that's out of control, that's not confident, and is seeking. And that is like, and so both of those bookends go away. In the middle with, I'm healthy, and I know myself, and this is my truth, and it's a part of me, but it doesn't define me fully. That part, the Brene part, that's the power, right? And so it's understanding that the other two sides exist, but that there's a really healthy, powerful middle that you are totally allowed to stand in.
I love that.
I think going through this notion and like figuring out how to find that middle ground for business, find that middle ground for business and like put it in your business was really helpful.
Well, one of the things that I wasn't sure of when we were in Arizona, but that kind of came out going through this and even just talking today, is that when we talked about the problem with the current, what is the status quo that needs to be overcome, and a piece of that was potential clients not sharing everything. So even if they get over the first hurdle of taking action, if they don't give 100% of their story and really do the work, they might end up with something that only protects them halfway or 75% of the way. And when when their family needs it the most, they might have let them down by trying to hold back and protect. And so if that's part of what needs to overcome, you're sitting here with a personal story and saying, do I really want to be vulnerable? You're demonstrating with vulnerability exactly what they need to do. So they're able to mirror you in some regard. They're connecting to you from that front end. So I think it's not only is any authenticity going to help through this, but your particular authenticity about the topic, right? Family, your kids, struggles, things that you see in the future. That is exactly what they're going through. And I think mirroring those two is going to be really, really important. And so I think, real quick, Tyson, I'm going to read through a couple things so the audience can understand like what Marne could have put out there. If somebody just goes online and does something through, whatever law program for their will or something, they're given a false sense of security because the family won't find out until it's too late that something's missing, unintended consequences. Then it's expensive to fix, even if it is fixable. And then, what's a secret that you realize that only that's changed everything. And, she's like, the real value isn't in the documents, it's extracting the information out of the client, right? Like that's the secret, right? How do I get all of the information? The more information I get, the better my services and gift bundle will be, the better the results will be for the client. So what does that, secret enable you to do? We just kind of hit that. I can actually get through conversations and hypotheticals. And then what's the ultimate, benefit? If the worst case scenario happens, they have a best case situation coming out of it. The worst thing happened, but we are the best prepared possible for this thing. That's what they're going for. So this is the interesting part. You go through and that we just went through that quickly, but that process, and Marne knows, that can take a day, that could take 2 days, that could take a week of going back and rewriting and going through that process. If I'm working with somebody individually, the first half of this whole document takes me usually about 4 hours of prying on somebody, right? Of like, go, nope, keep telling me, and like really hardcore, like a trainer almost. I'm picturing like Rocky in the gym. But the next piece is then how, so we know these things. So now, how do we have to change, right? And so for Marnie, how does she have to change? We were wrong about focusing on documents instead of outcomes. We were wrong about assuming clients would follow through without hand-holding, right? That they had the internal motivation, so they would just do the thing. We were wrong about, focusing on education. It's important, but the outcome, once again, was what was going to be motivating for this individual. I like this sentence, if you confuse, you lose. We were wrong about not using personal story and personality to market and build the brand of Marne. So that's how we have to change. And now that we know how we have to change, we start all the way back at the beginning. And again, Alex in his infinite wisdom broke this down into a really simple sentence. We are the only blank who offer blank by blank. That's it. And here's the key, and I really like this one, is that this is right when you can hand it to your competitor and they go, yeah, they are the only one. Okay? Like, if you hand it to the 10 other attorneys that are doing your same thing, and they're like, no, I do that. Like, you've written something generic, right? And it's very hard to get to that point. So this is, do you have it up in front of you, Marnie? Do you want to read it, or do you want me to read what you're...
I have it up in front of me, but I don't care.
Go for it. You read it. This is yours.
We are the only estate planning law firm who offer thoughtful estate plans for Utah families that work in real life and that are built up around their actual family dynamics and pain points. By helping families make good decisions about the people, relationships, assets, and real life scenarios that their plan and individual documents in their plan need to handle.
So that's a big one. It's a big sentence. I would want to whittle all of that down.
I was going to ask you to grade it. I was going to ask you, have you grade that scale A to F? Well, how do you grade it?
I think this is a B-.
Okay. Now how do we get it to an A?
Read your sexy shorthand real quick.
We do not just generate and draft documents. We help families make a real plan and good decisions about the people, relationships, assets, and real life scenarios that those documents need to handle.
So this is closer. I think we're pushing on a B+ at that moment. So if I was looking back through this, we are the only estate planning law firm who offer, and so we've got Utah families in there. I think that helps, but I don't know, because you could offer it somewhere else if you wanted, if you got a bar or whatever, that work in real life, that are built around actual family dynamics and pain points. I would, if the client is the hero in your relationship, which they ought to be, right? The client is the hero, because when they are done, their gold star, their medal, this document is protection for their family. They went through a gauntlet and they came out with protection for their family. They're providing. So they're the hero. You're the guide. I would get into the who offer. I would have something in here about the process of guiding them. Okay? Because that's what you're going, their experience with you is going to be that guiding of pulling out their personal story, of getting the real information. So you are going to be the estate planning law firm working with Utah families that has a proven process, or whatever this guide, something around that language of being the guide, by ensuring we get to, and this is where you get into the relationships, the real life scenarios. I would talk about extracting the experiences, their whys, their fears, right? Like, this is by making it safe to be vulnerable. That's what you're doing. You are walking them through, you are guiding them through a process by allowing them to safely be vulnerable. That's the seed. If they show up and tell you their 100% truth, what they're afraid of and what they desperately want to make sure happens, that you can take care of them. And anything less than that means they get a worse solution. So I would be focusing, that's what you do, right? And maybe by demonstrating the power of vulnerability. That's your secret. How do you do that? Well, I demonstrate how that works and what that looks like. Because I have built this amazing law firm that helps people by owning my own fears and my own vulnerability, right? There's this marriage there, and how that works into a sentence, we can work on it over time. We've got it recorded here, but that's the direction where I would go. That puts us into a quality, and I feel like if you handed that to another wills and estates attorney in Utah, they'd be like, yeah, I don't do that. That's definitely Marnie's brand, right? like, yeah, that's Marnie. And then, when somebody is out there seeking and searching and typing about something, or having a combo with GPT, because now it's not just a dry little Google search. Now it's 27 questions deep in perplexity, and all of a sudden it's like, you know what, I've got someone to suggest to you. You might want to look up this Marnie person. She sounds right up your alley.
So I think it's great, Travis. We're going to wrap on this because Marnie, will you walk us through, or not walk us through? Will you tell us what was the section or the question that you think kind of struck a chord with you the most, or maybe had the biggest impact on you? And then give us that, and then we'll wrap. And then Travis, if you want to talk about how people can get this, if you want to make it available to people, you can talk about that too. But Marnie, what is the I guess what is the part that struck the biggest chord with you or really had the biggest impact?
I mean, I downloaded a copy of it just on a PDF, and it's like almost 30 pages by the time.
Whoa.
So it's, but again, I think it would go back to probably just how much of my story, and then also just getting to the secret, like actually spending some time thinking about not just what is the problem in my market, but what is the actual solution, and how does that tie with my story and my truth? And I'm still trying to kind of cross that bridge and figure out how to do that. But just the idea and concept that it's so important to do that and to tie those together to really be successful and to help the most people. It's just been a new kind of concept and idea.
Love it. Really good.
And Tyson, I think what's important here is that I'm going to still work with Marnie, and we're going to go through the communication of the language and figure out how to. 30 pages is great. Now she has the context. Now we're going to go back to law school, and we're going to turn that into a 3-page outline so that we can apply it to any exam and any fact pattern, right? Like, that's what we're going to do next. But I want to really quickly read, and if anyone wants to find me, it's Travis Lee Howard on LinkedIn. You can connect with me, whatever. But I want to read for you because I did the same thing for CGH Law Firm. And now if you go and look at any of our marketing, we have billboards up with "It's more than money." Instead of a name and a check, rec, get a check, we're on the side of "It's more than money." We've got our dog, Kevin's dog, as this giant Newfoundland, as our mascot. Well, how is that coming out and showing our weird all over Facebook and meta ads and stuff? We got there through that same process, and then we wrote the manifesto that you did, Marnie, and I'm just going to read the manifesto real quick then you can understand how to apply all these lessons that came out, because this manifesto is what we give to the marketing agency, right? This is the energy. So we write the CGH manifesto. We believe it's more than money. We believe in justice, the ancient, authentic kind, the kind we read about in books as kids, the kind our teachers taught us about, the kind that is the foundation of an entire system to protect honest people, the kind that is slipping away. We believe in fighting, the sacred, virtuous kind, the kind we saw in our favorite movies as kids, the kind our heroes taught us about, the kind that repels greed and oppression and speaks truth to power, the kind that is slipping away. We believe in love, the whole body, messy, vulnerable kind, the kind our parents hoped for us as kids, the kind our own children teach us about, the kind that comes from looking deep into our greatest losses and learning, the kind that is slipping away. We believe in accountability, the wholly, deeply personal kind, the kind people want yet always avoid, the kind campaigns promise and always forget, the kind that we apply to ourselves even more strictly than to our villains, the kind that is slipping away. We believe these things are worth saving, which is why we started our firm, to stand up for ourselves, our neighbors, and our community, to change how the world views personal injury law, to be the things everyone thinks have gone missing from this world. We believe we know how, one person at a time, today, you, us, together. That's our manifesto. So twice in there, I had emotional reactions reading it because that came out of me and my partners. And it was real. When I give that to somebody to make a TV commercial, and I'm like, it better comply with this. There's only so far they can go, and now that message is coming out. Now that message goes onto our website. It goes to our staff. Kevin starts our quarterly or annual meetings by reading that manifesto, right? So it has core values embedded, it has the language, and so on and so forth. So that's where the application begins, right? Versus just the knowledge and intellectual exercise.
All right, I think it's a great place to wrap it. Here's what I want to see. I want to see a video of each of your teammates reading that. So line by line as a video or a commercial. That would be beautiful. I love that. That's really good. Getting it down to 30 seconds is going to be the challenge. That's going to be the big challenge. But excellent job. Marne, I can't wait to hear your manifesto. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing some of your story, Marne. Really appreciate it. Although Travis and I talk the majority of the time because he and I are both talkers. But thank you for sharing. And Travis, thanks for sharing this too. This is great. Really good stuff. I think people are going to get a lot out of it. So make sure you reach out to Travis if you have any questions. He is on LinkedIn, Travis Lee Howard. Marne, how do people get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you and ask you questions?
I'm on LinkedIn too. It's Marne Pehrson.
Very good. And it's Pehrson, so it's a little different. Actually, it's very different than most Pearsons. So excellent. Thank you both. Really appreciate it. Loved it. It's great stuff.
Thank you, Tyson. And for anyone watching this, if you are not a part of the association or heading to any of the summits that Tyson does, you ought to think about it. He's obviously gifted as a facilitator, and the people that he gets to show up are awesome. And Marnie's now a personal friend of mine. So well worth it, guys.
You know that feeling when you leave a conversation with someone and suddenly your brain is firing on all cylinders again? That's MaxLawCon. This October in Atlanta, you'll be surrounded by law firm owners who are building smarter businesses, dialing in their systems, growing their teams, using AI, improving intake, marketing, and finances, all of it. The conversations, ideas, and people in this room will push you to think bigger about what's possible for your firm. And honestly, there's just something different about being around people who are actually doing the thing. Go to maxlawcon.com and grab your ticket today.